was big and terrible. More frightening than I ever thought possible. I could hardly believe what had just happened. Neither man nor his machine were able to stop this creature.
My readers are probably wondering why I'm doing a video review. I've mentioned when I've discussed other video reviewers that I'm happy being a text reviewer. I was kind of curious to try this out, see how well I'd do as a rookie. And also, this is Godzilla. As a kid, I grew up with the classic movies, back when local channels used to show movies on a lazy Sunday, instead of infomercials. And of course the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, which I'm sure I'll discuss in one form or another in the future. Are they ever plot heavy with huge character development? Heck no. But even the worst of them were fun to watch in one way or another. Godzilla 1985 was one of the first movies I saw on our new VCR machine, back when they were all fancy and shiny and new. And the only Godzilla film my parents watched with me was that movie. But that's not the one I'm reviewing. So why am I reviewing one of the newer movies instead of one of the classic movies? Well, the goods were taken, but also after Godzilla vs. Biollante, Toho decided to start bringing back some of the older monsters from the classic era and reimagining them. So the first one they decided to bring back was one of my favorites, King Kong. Yeah, the only problem is Turner wanted too much for the license, so instead they went with Ghidorah, which may actually turn out to have been a better idea. Ghidorah is not only the favorite opponent among Godzilla fans, but actually the second most favorite monster. Godzilla, of course, being number one. But there's another reason, too, about this I really want to make sure to point out. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been a little concerned about the human race ever developing time travel, because I know how badly we'll screw up the space-time continuum. And I present to you Exhibit A, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. My copy is a double feature with Godzilla and Mothra to battle for Earth, but another reviewer should be picking that one up. There's only two problems with me doing a video review. Number one, I'm not used to writing a script. And number two, I'm not really comfortable looking into a camera like this. So if I'm going to pull this off, I'm going to need a distraction. And I can't think of a better distraction than drawing, so let's talk about this movie, shall we? The movie starts off with a submarine finding the body of King Ghidorah with his center head missing. After we're told he lost it fighting Godzilla in the 20th century, cut to 1992 AD as the opening credits are invaded by a UFO. The people look on in amazement as Japan hasn't been invaded in months. Cut to the next day where our hero, Terasawa, is being requested to write about the UFO and claims he's tired of writing about science fiction. Instead wants to meet with this guy.
A long time ago, in a far-off land, I saw a real live dinosaur. You don't know about this dinosaur. You don't know what it was like. But I certainly do. He's close by. And he watches over all of us. I'm not sure where he hides, but he can see us. And if we ever become helpless and desperate, the dinosaurs will come back to us. and save us from tragedy and disaster, just as it did before. On that doomed World War II blood-filled battlefield we once faced.
So he wants to avoid science fiction like the UFO that everybody just saw, and discuss a dinosaur on an island that some nut claims protected them from American forces in World War II. Yeah, I'm just gonna let that sink in for a moment. Idiot.
Meanwhile, some group of something or other is looking over the UFO sighting information when Miki Sagawa, or Sakaza according to the TriStar dub, from the previous movie, in the ESP Research Institute, because of course Japan has its own psychic study group, tells us that thanks to anti-nuclear bacteria that keeps Godzilla alive, they've been able to track him. He's been found after the last movie, and the UFO is in the same area. In other words, the only recurring human character in the franchise, and in her second appearance, she's reduced to mere exposition. Nice going, guys.
Later, when a couple of helicopters spontaneously explode, they're able to find the UFO. Kurosawa looks more into the dinosaur and is convinced that there was one on Lagos Island, where the man's garrison was stationed.
Tested on Lagos in 1954. So the dinosaur was hit by massive radioactivity. And after that, the dinosaur turned into Godzilla.
We also learned that a man named Shindo, the owner of the Dinosaur World Museum, was also on Lagos. Shindo claims to have never seen a dinosaur until Kurosawa tells him about the Godzilla theory. Later, Kurosawa shows Shindo's pictures to a scientist friend and his reporter pal, respectively the second and first most useless characters in the movie. Seriously, the scientist made sense. I mean, if you have a theory that involves dinosaurs, you get a dinosaur expert. It makes sense. However, the other reporter is so useless that none of the reviews I've ever read online have even acknowledged the fact that she's in the movie. Also, this is the first in-canon appearance of pre-Godzilla, referred to as a Godzillasaurus. Of course, there's no such thing as a Godzillasaurus in the real world. But again, I haven't studied dinosaurs since I was a kid. So I was supposed to... You know, I think I need my dinosaur expert of my own. Let me send an email.
Shadow Wingtronics asks, is there really such a thing as a Godzillasaurus? Oh yeah, Gojirasaurus Key of late Triassic New Mexico is a real dinosaur. Its name refers to Godzilla lizard, and it was the largest carnivore of its time. Well, it's pretty big by Triassic carnivore standards anyway. Not much is known about this carnivore, but we do know that it's closely related to Coelophysis and should look something like your average Coelophysoid. It looks nothing like that!
The military brings in the heavy armament, except for the anti-Godzilla lasers, because they never work anyway, and we get a text message for a meet and greet. Two Japanese representatives meet with 3 people from the ship.
I'm Wilson. It's nice to meet you.
I'm Glenn Chico.
Emi Kano. I'm Japanese.
Funny. I would have sworn she was Irish. They come from the future of 2204 AD, which means we have about 200 years to be disappointed yet again, and speak to the representatives via hologram, because they like to show off. These Futurians want to meet with the Prime Minister, so they use a shuttlecraft to teleport to the Nation's office, which defeats the whole purpose of having a shuttlecraft, if you ask me. Wilson tells the government official that in the future Godzilla returns and wreaks nuclear devastation, making Japan unlivable and essentially destroying the nation. However, they have a plan. Emi shows them a book written by Kurosawa sometime in the future, so the writer is brought in along with his dino expert friend. The Futurians decide to go back in time and simply move the pre-mutated Godzilla to another island, so we won't become Godzilla. Hang on a minute. Let's see if I got this straight. The Futurians want to take the Godzillasaurus off the island here, teleport him somewhere out in the ocean here. So that means that Godzilla won't end up meeting with Mr. Hydrogen Bomb and become to destroy Japan. Nice theory, but That means there was no Godzilla, so they didn't have to go back in time. But if they don't go back in time, then the Godzillasaurus will become Godzilla, and then they'll have to go back in time after. But then that means there's no Godzilla again. There's no need to go back in time. They require Kurosawa, the dino expert, and Miki for help. Not sure why. They have the book. So they enter the time ship, again with a bunch of show-offs. They meet their android. Seriously, are you people overcompensating? And we learn why Shindo, the more logical choice, wasn't chosen, seeing as he was, on the island at the time.
It's because the same person can't be at the same point in time more than once. Therefore, if we send Mr. Shindo, there would be a serious problem, because there would be two Mr. Shindos, both at the same place and at the same time, meaning one of them would have to vanish.
Well,
Hey, look, escalators! Guess the anti-grav teleporter in this area was broken.
Emmy, could you please answer a question for me?
What is it?
Well, tell me now. Did my book become a bestseller?
Actually, hardly anyone even knew about you.
I see.
That will convince him to write the book. That he won't have to write. Our group enter the ship and meet Miki's pets, the Dorats, who bear slight resemblance to someone, but I can't put my finger on it. Anyway, the show goes into time warp. And arrived during the war. Oh, and I should probably mention this gag.
That looked to me like it was from another planet.
I have to agree, sir. It did look like it was from another planet, but... Shall we report it, sir?
What, that we're being invaded by little green men from outer space? Let's just keep it as our secret. You can tell your son about it when he's born. Major Spielberg?
Could you have made that delivery more blatant? The U.S. forces decide to start bombing the place, and we get to see the younger Shindo. M11, the android, decides to have a look around and... Oh my god, that's what you're going with, really? Seriously, guys? What is the understanding there with him on roller skates? $6 Million Man did a better job of showing super speed. We see Shindo's speech, say that 3 times fast, to his troops, and the next day the Japanese force makes their sortie on the American forces and gets their butts handed to them. Pardon me, a little moment for a little American pride. Okay. And then the Godzillasaurus arrives. The U.S. forces decide to attack the dinosaur, because that's always a good idea, and he drops a force on it. Hey, more fodder for Major Spielberg's kid. However, not being a mutation yet, battleships can still take him down. Yeah, that explains why I always text so many boats.
Wait a minute! Is that Gamera's roar? Oh my god, that is Gamera's roar! Toho just took the rival company's signature monster roar and used it on their own? This is like Sonic the Hedgehog appearing on a Nintendo system. Wait.
Yeah, he's right. Like many other monsters in the Heisei era, the Godzillasaurus' roar was borrowed from 2 other kaiju, Rodan, albeit extremely slowed down, and ironically, Gamera when he screams in agony. Huh, I learned something. Wait, Rodan? And then Baby Godzilla shows up in Rodan's nest in a later episode. Why is my slash make sense suddenly tingling? However, he's still Godzilla and manages to get up long enough to finish off the soldiers. The time travelers prepare to move the dinosaur, and the leader of the Japanese soldiers apologizes to the Godzillasaurus for leaving him behind near death, and hopes he won't hold it against him. M11 successfully teleports the dinosaur, while Emily secretly releases the Dorats before the ships take off.
The shuttle returns to the present, and they can easily confirm that Godzilla has been erased from history, despite the fact that everybody still knows he ever existed in the first place.
This should have been a clue that he wasn't removed from history, but I've seen smarter civilians in the Marvel Universe. However, a new monster, King Ghidorah, is running around instead. So much for that plan. Apparently, King Ghidorah decided to wait longer than Godzilla did to start turning Japan to flatlands, and has only now launched his attack. The Japanese begin to think that maybe the Futurians are behind King Ghidorah.
Everything we've done up to this point is gone just as planned.
What do you mean?
Godzilla has disappeared. And now King Ghidorah has taken his place.
You think? Okay, now get this. In the future, Japan becomes a new industrial superpower, and they think it's gotten too big for its britches. So they want to use Ghidorah to wipe out Japan, which of course leads to the controversial part of our movie. Remember your history. In the 80s, Americans were worried that Japan was trying to buy up America, considering all the property and businesses they were buying up at the time. So hearing about this, and only hearing is outside of fan sales, which wouldn't really exist for a while yet, the movie wouldn't hit U.S. shores for years. So just hearing about it made it a bit uncomfortable. And especially with the Futurians being a bunch of white guys trying to keep Japan from reaching economic superiority. I kind of understand that concern at that point in history, but I don't think that was actually the intent to make Americans look bad. That's what Hollywood does. But as far as the scene with the American military being attacked by the Godzillasaurus, well, they were the only ones dumb enough to shoot at him. And let's look at the war from their point of view. That's fine. I'll get more into that when I write the review of the first Batman serial. Oh, that's going to burn up the comments. Yeah. Emmy.
I'm Japanese.
Has issues with her homeland being wiped out. You're controlling a giant, three-headed dragon. What did you think would happen? So she sneaks off and goes to Terasawa to fess up. Unfortunately, our villains find out that Emmy turned out to be a patriot. And you didn't think to lock her up? I know later Wilson gives us some big speech about wanting to see how Japan was going to react, but really, this is stupid. The bigwigs think that by recreating Godzilla, they may have a chance. However, they need nukes, and nobody has nukes, except for another of other countries. And Shindo, who owns a nuclear submarine with nuclear weapons. Well, every businessman should have one. While they debate whether or not it's right to create a new Godzilla, Miki can still sense him. Did nobody think to check to history to see if, in fact, Godzilla was still in it? Or realize that everybody still remembers him? And Terasawa and what's-her-name find out that there was a wrecked submarine where they deposited the dinosaur. Terasawa and Emmy race to stop Shindo from creating another Godzilla, but M11 decides to snag Emmy, leading to a car chase out of the Terminator movies. Only with more ice skating. Emmy is taken back to the ship, but Wilson decides not to lock her up, or kill her, or anything smart, so she changes M11's CDs and turns him to her side. Honestly, they're smarter, Saturday morning cartoon villains than these guys. Meanwhile, Shindo's plan to create a new Godzilla is foiled by Godzilla. Okay, kids, retcon time. Later movies and fan theories come together to tell that this Godzilla is indeed the one from 1985 onward, and the subwreck and the subsequent explosion, perhaps, was the cause of his creation. Now, the original Godzilla from the first movie is theorized to be another Godzillasaurus, and this is the one that was killed off by the oxygen destroyer in 1963, which is definitely important when you get to Godzilla vs. Destroyer. that movie has to have taken first movie has to have taken place for that one to take place, and that is in continuity with the second one. So the Godzilla wiki theorizes that this second Godzilla was the one who would have shown up in Godzilla Raids Again through the rest of the original series, which means the Futurians' interference actually kept that from not happening, which meant somehow that stopped the aliens from invading, which means that the Ghidorah would have been a space monster and not... Wait a minute. Did I mention I hate time travel? Look, there's only 2 points to make here. 1, the Futurians are morons, and 2, atomic bombs make nicer monsters than nuclear submarines. M11 sneaks Terasal onto the time ship so Emmy can tell him the rest of Wilson's scheme. Because the reporter is more effective than the military, at least in the Godzilla movie, Miki and the Dino expert see Godzilla in person, and the Air Force goes after Ghidorah, which goes about as well as you'd expect. Then it's time for the moment we've been waiting for, as Godzilla arrives to take on King Ghidorah. Okay, so here it is, the biggest moment in 2 decades. Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, together again for the first time. And folks, this better be bloody epic. So it doesn't live up to our expectations? Well, I couldn't find anybody to do the wrestling commentary bit, and this review's kind of running a bit long. So let me just give you the story important highlights. Ghidorah starts off with his trademark lightning attack. Godzilla counters with his nuclear breath. Both of them use a breath mint. Ghidorah blocks it with his wings and takes to the skies, raining lightning on Godzilla. With the Futurians in control of Ghidorah, things aren't looking well for our anti-hero. Then back in Ghidorah's locker room, Terasal and the others blow up with the computer Wilson planned to use to control Japan's future. The backlash destroys the control over Ghidorah, and Godzilla takes action. Also, I love this scene with M11.
Here I am.
Ghidorah goes into desperation mode, choking Godzilla with his own neck. Things look bad again until the Big G shakes him off and blows his head clean off his neck. That's hardcore, brother. Then Terasal and Amy confront her former companions.
You betrayed the Union. Forget
Shoot
about
in.
giving a computer to Japan.
Shoot in.
It's been destroyed.
No, seriously.
What do you mean?
You got a good shot. Shoot him. You got a gun.
Do you? That means you
Just
won.
talking like an idiot.
It doesn't matter.
Water robots are
We
gone.
don't need a computer or King
Just shoot
Ghidorah
him.
to do our work. Godzilla's going to
Don't
destroy
you shooting
the
him.
country of Japan himself.
Shoot him before you leave.
Emmy, come on!
Ghidorah tries to make his usual escape, but this is the new Godzilla, who shoots him down over the sea. This will be important later. Our heroes escape in the shuttlecraft and use the teleporter to send the ship into the battle so it can be destroyed by Godzilla. Granted, this is actually cooler than simply shooting him, but seems like a lot of extra work.
Wow, it's not the dinosaur we knew. Just look at that thing. It's not going to be friendly to us.
Dude, get your continuity straight. He hasn't been friendly since Godzilla 1985. Sure enough, he shows up in Sapporo and levels the place. Although he does manage to trip in a subway tunnel. Terasal has a plan to revive Ghidorah in the future and bring him back to the present to finish off Godzilla. Apparently doing things the complicated way is just the way they do things in Japan.
Make sure that you come back, Emmy.
I surely will. Because I like this age very much.
You mean you don't think that it's primitive?
I really mean it. I like it.
But why?
I like it here only because you're here.
Aw, how romantic. We finished the sub-scene from before and learned that Ghidorah is still alive. After 200 years of falling into the sea, with seawater flowing into his headless neck. Yeah. Shindo loses his marbles watching his former savior destroy everything he's built and lets himself be destroyed by Godzilla. Apparently he took being left to die personally. Oh no. Then, Emmy returns with Mecha Ghidorah. M11, now the computer helping her control the monster.
Look at all these features that you get. Mechanical center head, large metallic wings, a maser cannon, electrified harpoon claws, huge chest claw. I mean, talk about Pit My Kaiju.
I don't care what Nostalgia Critic says, that's what the Cloverfield monster should have looked like. So, if a battle between Godzilla and Ghidorah was epic, then Godzilla versus a cyborg Ghidorah has to be double epic. You're just going to have to get the movie to find out. Like I said, this is the best part of the movie. So let's just skip ahead and see the only subplot that was worth following. The tragic love story of two time-displaced people.
I have to live 200 years just so I can see you again.
Terasawa, there's something I never got a chance to tell you. We're related. You're one of my distant ancestors from this wonderful age.
With a bit of incest thrown in, apparently. Wait a minute, wait. So what was with that scene earlier?
I like it here only because you're here.
So who's the love interest? Her? Wait a minute. The only evidence we got that there was anything romantic between these two was one throwaway line on an answering machine that wasn't even worth bringing up. Much like the character. Can we end this on some kind of high note, please? Sequels. I'll buy that. And that's Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. So I guess the real question is it something to see? How do I analyze this? I need to do something. I don't know, I'll borrow the idea from my comic reviews. Namely,
what they got right. The important part of any Godzilla movie are the kaiju costumes. Godzilla's is the same from the previous film, Godzilla vs. Biollante, with some minor tweaking. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's a beautiful costume, probably one of the best of the franchise, if not the best. Also, we get the introduction of the new pre-Godzilla Godzilla, the Godzillasaurus. It's a cool-looking monster, and it's nice to see where our favorite monster came from. But the one we came to see is King Ghidorah. That one does not disappoint. It's a great update of the classic look. It looks like Ghidorah. It feels like Ghidorah. It's a beautiful-looking monster. But the show stealer has to be his new form, Mecha King Ghidorah. Proof that the only thing cooler than a giant monster is a giant cyborg monster piloted by a cute girl. The heroes fit perfectly, even the useless character. I love Emmy. I just want to cuddle her up and take her home. The villains are so smug and over the top that you love seeing them get a face full of nuclear breath, which is important for a villain. The music I didn't find especially memorable, but they did complement the scenes perfectly. What they got wrong. I'm not going to fault them for the treatment of the soldiers, trucking anything insulting, which I didn't see, to simply cultural perspective. I think that I can understand the concern about the Futurians mostly being a bunch of white guys, except for the heroic Japanese girl. But I'm not going to just dwell on that too much. It didn't bother me a whole lot. Some fans might be bothered that we have to wait until the last quarter of the movie to see the monsters fight. Well, I would say that the fights themselves make up for the long build-up, but your mileage may vary. I can see why that would be an issue. Now we start getting to the real issues. While all the other effects are good for the time, the scene with the spaceship miniature combined with actors or a cityscape just stands out badly. You can tell they're not really there, or that the ship isn't really there, especially in the opening credits. But the real problem comes down to 6 words. Time travel doesn't work that way! I can accept a few logic drops for the sake of a good time travel story. I'm a movie after all. But when your logic is so bad that a later movie and a whole bunch of fan theory has to come together to pull a retcon to fix the core logic of this plot line, you're doing it wrong!
And my recommendation? Well, if you're a Godzilla fan, I say definitely get this. It's the historic return of Ghidorah, and that makes it pretty special. If you're a casual fan, I still say watch it. The plot may be ridiculous, and the time travel theory is questionable at best. But you get some great monster battles. The characters are pretty good. And I can think of worse ways to spend your time. Besides the Godzilla movie, I think everybody should watch every Godzilla movie ever made, so I'm kind of biased on this one. But one last note for Toho and IDW. Ghidorah versus Mecha Ghidorah. IDW, Toho, I just gave you a license to print money. Use it.
Mecha King Ghidorah versus King Ghidorah. Monsters, fight!